Well, to discuss the status of the election campaign with two people who have been through a few of them, let's bring in my political panel of politicians, former politicians who know all about it. Craig Emerson, former Trade Minister in the Gillard government, and Jason Falinski, a former Liberal MP. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Patricia. G'day, Jason.
You're making us sound old there, Patricia.
No.
We've been through a few, have we?
No. Spring chickens. I've invited the spring chickens, my Generation Z politician panel. OK, I'm going to ask just a simple question, and I'm trying to encourage you not to be partisan, as hard as it is for you both, right? I know you're Labor and Liberal people. Who won week 2? Go, Jason.
I think it was actually Donald Trump, to be honest with you.
Good answer.
And I don't mean to be avoiding your question. I think both leaders did pretty well this week, stayed on message, got their issues out. I think Peter Dutton's visuals were better. And look, you know, the previous report you were just doing there, which had some hilarious social media takes. I particularly like the white rapper. That was hilarious. But visuals are incredibly important and cutting through in a campaign. But look, the 800-pound gorilla in the room at the moment is Donald Trump, and it's very hard to cut through the noise he's creating.
Yeah, it's definitely gorilla is one way to describe him. Craig Emerson, who do you think won the week?
I do think Anthony Albanese and Labor did, but I'll back that up with data, and that is the most recent opinion polls. There's one out today by YouGov, which actually has the Labor vote higher than it was in 2022 at that election in two-party preferred terms. That's actually backed up by other opinion polls as well, and there was a debate on television. I think there were 100 undecided voters, and they broke in Anthony Albanese's favour. So I'll cite those statistics lest it be suggested that I'm biased in my analysis, but looks like Labor's got the momentum. And the final thing I'll say is I imagine we'll come to the working from home thing. That continues to dog Peter Dutton. He's said, no, it was a mistake, it's behind us now, but sometimes it's harder to put something behind you than you wish it was, and I think that's the case with this policy. People were really upset about it. Yeah,
Jason, they did backflip on that at the start of the week, and they were pretty upfront about it. But there is still confusion about the public service. Today we heard that it was going to be voluntary redundancies in the public service. Peter Dutton didn't confirm that, even though he was pressed at the press conference. Why so much confusion, do you think?
Look, I don't actually know. I think potentially that they got into the election campaign with a clear idea about what they wanted to do. I think the issue wasn't framed as well as it should have been, and so that created backlash, let's be blunt about it. And so the result of that is that they've gone back to square one to try and clarify what they're saying. And as Craig correctly pointed out, sometimes when you're doing these somersaults in the middle of a campaign, it's a very difficult thing to do. So I think when, victory cures all ills, but if we fall short, which I hope we don't, one of the things will be, I think, there'll be a focus on this policy as being a misstep.
Oh, that's interesting. Craig, you've already given your analysis on it, but just the confusion about the numbers, does it make a difference if it's voluntary, or how do you see this?
And you mentioned Donald Trump. I think there's a psychological equivalence being created here. Donald Trump has a Department of Government Efficiency. The Coalition has announced a Department of Government Efficiency. Donald Trump's getting stuck into public servants. The working from home policy was directed at public servants, but I'm sure people are saying, well, if he doesn't like working from home for public servants, obviously he doesn't like working from home for us either. And these are the people in the outer suburbs where the Coalition thinks it can win some seats. And they, when they work from home, they can look after an elderly parent. They can, when they do go to work, not go during the mad peak hour rush and so on. And so I think they'd be saying, well, this is a bit Trump-like. And so I think what's happening is Peter Dutton is being carried along by the eccentricities of Donald Trump, which we see on display every night on our television.
I want to go to something that I'm really curious to hear your views on, Jason, which is today's announcement on dumping the vehicle emissions standard. Now, in seats like the one that, you know, I don't like to remind you, but I have to, that you lost, where, you know, there were Teal MPs who were successful, I imagine policies like this, getting rid of standards like this, don't go down very well. Am I right?
Well, Mackellar's slightly different to other Teal seats in that there's a large proportion of tradies in this seat who drive utes, and therefore I think this policy will go down reasonably well. But look, I have to be very clear about it. The new vehicle emission standard that Chris Bowen announced is slightly problematic because it exceeds the amount of current production of electric vehicles and hybrids globally for those categories that he was talking about. So there was, at some point, you know, we all want, including me, we all want our vehicles to be electrified. We want zero emissions coming from our cars and utes and trucks, etc. But the issue does take over that at some point you have to look at numbers and you have to be driven by facts. And the facts are that Chris's policy just simply didn't add up. So there needed to be an adjustment to that policy. I think, PK, you're right. There are a lot of people who will hear this and go, oh, the coalition's backing away from a commitment around climate. That's not the case. And the people who would have been hurt by this policy haven't been hurt yet and hopefully never will be, i.e. not being able to get a ute or at a very high, much higher price than it needed to be. So that's part of the problem with this announcement today, or the challenge with this announcement today.
I want to just talk about a couple of things before I say goodbye to you both. One of them is this alleged plot on Peter Dutton, which is really disturbing. The Prime Minister has also said there was an alleged plot on or something. We don't know all the details. He says for national security reasons we can't, but on him as well. Craig Emerson, to you, we've seen a real increase on these threats on politicians. It's really disturbing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's not unprecedented, unfortunately. I remember when I was working for Bob Hawke, someone was seen when he was on the golf course, you know, rustling through the trees or the bushes outside. Nothing came of it, but I think in this day and age, the digital age, it's more likely that these things will come to light. So I'm just saying it's not new. Hopefully it's not more prevalent, and gladly, at least the authorities are really on the job, and I do commend the Australian Federal Police and all the authorities for identifying these threats and neutralising them in, you know, the best possible way, that is in full accordance with the law.
Final word to you, Jason.
Look, I'm just appalled by this, and I think it's a symptom of a disease that has crept into Western politics, which is that our arguments no longer are about ideas. One of the reasons I like debating Craig is it's never personal, it's always about ideas, and there should be more of that. The over-personification, like, you know, for example, we can't talk about the housing crisis or the rental crisis without mentioning ex-politician owns a certain number of houses. It's absurd and it's ridiculous and it has to stop.
Thank you to both of you. I couldn't agree more. We need civil, vigorous debate. No one should feel unsafe in our country. Thank you so much.
Thanks, PK.
Thanks.